Just a day away from the 2025 NBA Finals getting underway in OKC, both teams making final preparations for the opening game, which goes tomorrow, 8:30 Eastern. Today is Finals Media Day as we get thoughts from coaches and players with the Larry O.B. just 4 wins away. Both teams looking for the first NBA title. SGA, that man right there, going to have a lot to say about the outcome of this series. Welcome to Finals Media Day, presented by YouTube TV. Nabil Kareem alongside Dennis Scott. You are the perfect person to be sitting. I'm not even just saying that because we were scheduled together. You're the perfect guy for this situation because listen, no, we got two very young teams.
Yep.
Back in 95, you were in a very similar position, right? You were what, 26 at that time?
That's right.
Okay. So what were you going through the day before the game, just mentally, psyche-wise?
Well, I think the biggest thing is controlling your family. And people don't understand that because when you're a young team, it's your first time being in this spotlight. It's the biggest stage of all stages of basketball. So that's the first thing guys have to do. Mom, dad, wives, girlfriend, kids, get them under control to get out the way so you can be laser focused on the task. And now you're looking at your opponent. They're saying the same thing. They haven't won a championship either, even though Rick Carlisle is the kind of the mainstay. He's the professor, if you will, for Indiana. But Siakam's the only one that knows what it feels like, just like Caruso's the only one that knows what it feels like for OKC. So how do those two guys put their voice in that locker room today and tomorrow before that game tips? Because all the small nuances and details really kick in. You talk to the media, well, this is going to be a quiet series, 2 small markets. Well, I call it 10-on-10 basketball. Yeah. We're not concentrating on one superstar or the big 3. You're just figuring out 2 coaches that can go 10 deep, similar styles. They both play defense. They both share the basketball. Who makes the least amount of mistakes in this series?
It's going to be fascinating. There's so many great storylines in this series. Stephanie Reddy is in OKC. She is going to be covering it, and she joins us now. Stephanie, we were mentioning, 2 really young teams here on the biggest stage. Just set the scene for us heading into Game 1.
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for having me on with you. It's interesting because before you even start talking about the basketball component of the NBA Finals, in this situation, you actually have to talk about the transportation component because the Indiana Pacers had quite a delay yesterday trying to get into Oklahoma City. There were tornadoes and terrible storms. There was actual flooding in Norman, Oklahoma, which is where OU is. And because of that, they had to be diverted, their charter plane, to Tulsa to refuel because they had been circling for so long over OKC waiting for the go-ahead to land. Now, while they were waiting for the go-ahead, the storm hit. Power went out at the airport for a little bit. It was kind of a little bit chaotic, but the good news is in this, what they call Tornado Alley in Oklahoma City, they understand how to deal with storms. By the time I landed, which was after the Pacers, it just looked like it was a regular rain situation. No major damages done anywhere. I couldn't see any evidence except for the ground was wet. So when they got diverted to Tulsa, refueling, there was no issues there. They did finally get to Oklahoma yesterday, guys, right around 7 p.m. A little later than they wanted, but everyone was safe. So that's the first thing. They had to deal with that. Now, you talk about these 2 teams playing each other in basketball. They are very similar in this regard. Both of these teams like to play up-tempo basketball. The Pacers obviously known for their pace. They started that last season where they really were getting up and down, scoring often before the 7-second part has gone off the clock. But they also both play defense. Now, that's new to the Pacers in the fact that they are one of the better defensive teams. This season, we saw them really step things up at the start of the year, January 1. They turned the corner defensively. So now you have 2 teams that are very capable of scoring a lot of points, but also very capable of getting stops on the defensive end. I am very eager to see which one will win out.
Well, Steph, sticking with that theme, when you look at both teams, they go very deep into their bench, 9, 10, sometimes 11. Can you take me into your basketball mind and how you see that playing out? Which bench needs to step up the most?
That is such a good point because this also is one of the similarities that these 2 teams have, that they do have a very deep bench. I will tell you this. I think that the Pacers bench is going to have to step up bigger if I had to pick one, only because the way that Oklahoma City has been playing this entire season, even going back to last season, they're used to guys in and out of the lineup, whether it's due to injury or matchups for that specific opponent. They know that they can go 11 deep and nobody has any issues, very little drop off. They all trust each other implicitly. And you see even on the defensive end, they get stops with those guys. Often, 3D, you know this, a lot of times the bench stars are scorers, right? When you talk about sixth man of the year in the NBA, when you look back through the history of the league, they're often scorers, guys who can come in, get hot quick, score a lot of buckets all at a quick time. This OKC team, their bench scorers are also good defenders. And so that could be a game changer when you're talking about twos versus twos, right? The bench players playing each other. The advantage goes to OKC.
All right, Stephanie, appreciate the time. Thank you very much. Right now, we're going to head over to Mark Daigneault, who has hit the podium talking on behalf of the OKC Thunder.
Hey, Mark.
Hey.
You can't really tell anything from that 30 minutes of open shooting, obviously.
Good.
I know. You didn't give anything away. But it just seemed like the group is very loose, as you'd expect them to be, even though you have, most of your guys have not been on this stage, obviously. How have they handled the build-up to this, and how do you think they'll handle the different feeling that is coming, even though they're at home tomorrow night? It's just going to feel different. How is this group wired to handle that?
Well, the first thing is we have to be who we are, and we enjoy coming to work every day. That's how our facility is, regardless of whether or not it's the finals or regardless of whether or not anybody else is there. And I encourage them to be that. We have to stay true to who we are in this whole experience. And then we have to acknowledge the things that are different. There's a lot of different elements around the game. And we also have to understand the things that are the same. And when the ball goes up in the air, the game's going to come down to the same things. Whether or not you win or lose is going to come down to the same things. And it's okay to acknowledge that it's going to feel a little different outside the lines, but we have to understand it's going to be the same inside the lines, and that needs to be our focus.
On your right, Simone in the front.
Oklahoma City is a unique NBA market. Can you talk about the impact of the Thunder on the city and vice versa, the impact on the fan base, which is obviously a great fan base on the club?
Well, the people that have been here since the beginning can speak better to what the team has meant for the growth of the city. The city's a lot different than it was when the team first moved here, which is a credit to Mr. Bennett and the vision that he had for what this team could mean to the community. And the community and the team have just a very unique relationship. It's the only professional sports team in town. The fans are unbelievably enthusiastic about the team. And I've said this many times before, but when we were rebuilding and we were winning a lot less than we were losing, the support and encouragement we got from our fans was really telling. And I think it's had a lot to do with our ability to develop young players. Because when you're a young player in the NBA, you're trying to find your footing. You're trying to establish yourself. There's a lot of, you could be uneasy about that process. And to be in a market where everybody is rooting for you, everybody's supporting you, everybody's encouraging you, and you feel that at the games and in the community, I honestly think that has an impact on our player development. I think our young players have grown up faster and have performed better because they exist in this market.
On your left, fourth row.
Mark Ariaga from ESPN Brazil. You've been here for 5 years, and the early years were certainly challenged, like you just said. And this roster was built piece by piece. I would like to know and what point did you realize that this team was really competing for the title?
There were very early flickers, even in those early years. Those were challenging years at different times, and certainly they look like challenging years on paper. They didn't feel they were not how it felt every day was not a reflection of our record or where our standing was in the league. You could feel that something was starting to simmer. You could feel that some of the seeds we were planting were going to be flowering at some point. There were very early indications of that, even in those seasons. And so we were confident even back then, not necessarily that we'd be in the finals right now. You never know the timing of when things come together, but we were confident that we were building something special and something that had the ability to sustain. And then as time went on, there were just more and more experiences that gave us more and more confidence in that. But that belief existed at the earliest point in time. A lot of that had to do with the way the guys were approaching every day, independent of the outcomes of the games, and the way the guys were competing together, regardless of what the final score was in some of the games. There was an uncommon approach that our team was taking, and it gave us a lot of confidence early on.
All the way back on the right, Jeff
Zilgett, USA Today. Mark, Rick Carlisle has had a pretty solid 2.5 decade run as a coach in this league. What has stood out to you about him in terms of his longevity, ability to adapt to different teams, personnel, and eras?
I mean, I can't say enough about him and the respect I have for him. I think the whole is better than the sum of the parts, almost consistently across every year he's ever coached. The team is better than their sum. I think that's a reflection of him. His teams play with a very clear identity. They stay in character through all the ups and downs. That identity has changed over the years based on his teams, based on the league trends. But his teams are always in character, and this year is certainly no exception. And his players play with a lot of confidence. His best players play with a lot of confidence, and role players play with a lot of confidence. And they all seem to operate on the high end of their capacity when they're playing with him. So, he's got unbelievable endurance in the league. And what I'd also say is, like, he's kind of out in front of some trends in the NBA right now. And to be somebody that has the experiences that he has, that's very impressive that he's been able to evolve and be a trendsetter, even as he's been one of the longest tenured people in the NBA.
On your left, Nick.
Mark, obviously turnovers have been a huge storyline for your defense all year, but also you've forced teams into shooting really low percentages throughout the season. As you go up against a team that's shot it extremely well all year, including here in the playoffs, what are some of the key fundamentals defensively that you all are going to need to lean into to kind of combat that battle?
I mean, they're a tall task. The fundamentals are not complicated. It's not like we're out here emphasizing new things. We're not inventing anything this week. Their attack is very simple. The theoretical way to stop it is simple, and in reality, it's very difficult to do, as you can see from the way that they've really had their way with everybody. It's one thing to understand what they're doing and one thing to understand what you need to do. It's quite another to execute it. And that's what makes them really hard to play against. I mean, they pump a 99-mile-an-hour fastball at you, and you can prepare all you want for that. But when you're in the batter's box, it's different when it's time to hit it. So it's going to be a very tall challenge.
Second row over here.
Coach, I know you spent over a decade in Oklahoma City, but from a kid from Leominster, Massachusetts, to the NBA Finals, how surreal is it, coming from all the way from Leominster to here to the Finals?
It's awesome. It's awesome for everybody. There's every single person that's participating in this, whether it's coaches, players, staff. There was a time in their life when this was just a dream. This wasn't a foregone conclusion for them. And that's every player that's participating. There's a time where they were in their driveway shooting 1-on-0 with a basket, counting down the end of a game. And so that's what makes it so special to participate in. That's why it's such a great opportunity for everybody. We're all very humbled and grateful to be a part of it.
Last question on your right, Michael.
Michael Grange here. Just want to ask you about Pascal Siakam and what he lends to Indiana in terms of a half-court option, and do you feel you are well-suited to kind of countering that defensively?
Easier said than done, just like I talked about their team, but great versatility on both ends of the floor offensively. He can play in the pick-and-roll game as a handler or a setter. He's an isolation player that can go get them a high-quality shot. He can get fouled. He can post smaller matchups. He's kind of a matchup problem, quite frankly, on that end. And then defensively, he's one of their best help defenders. He's always eating space like all the great help defenders. He's got great length. He can also play on the ball. He can play outside and inside. He's about as rangy and versatile of a player as you can get at that position. So somebody we have high respect for, and obviously a huge part of the series.
Thank you, Coach.
Yep, thanks.
All right, just getting started here on Finals Media Day. Waiting on players, starting with OKC, and that man right there, the MVP, SGA. We'll hear from Shea coming up after the break.